Welcome to Sampstra Games, the place to find new strategy games, and welcome to my tips and tricks for the War. This is a roguelike deck builder that's currently in its early access on Steam. So let's tie this up with tip number 1. Thin deck. So this is a tip that applies to most roguelike deck builders. Essentially what you gotta do is you gotta make sure that you keep a very thin deck of cards. You start off with some basic cards. The basic cards I'm showing you right now are for the Light Destroyer or the second ship, the red ship. You start off with 4 cards for defense, 4 cards for attack, and Gatling Gun. The Gatling Gun is essentially a free card because it deals damage, costs no energy, and allows you to draw a card. So this is a card that does not pollute your deck. But these other ones do. And the problem is, as you gain more and more cards, you won't be able to draw the cards you want because you're drawing some of these other basic 1 cards. So a really good tip is try to get rid of your cards as much as you can. Usually on Questionmarks, on other places like that, you can sell some cards or buy the ability to remove the cards. So you always want to do it so that you can get more powerful cards. Alright, I'm going to show you right now on the screen an example of a thin deck. As you can see, I only have 4 basic cards, 2 point defense and 2 plasma bursts. I do have 2 Gatling guns, but like I explained, they do not pollute the deck. And otherwise I have more powerful cards. So in order to make thin deck, you gotta follow 2 tips. 1, get rid of as many basic cards as you can. 2, pick cards that work with your build. Now this can be difficult because you don't always know what kind of build you're gonna have, but essentially you don't want to end up in a situation where even though you have more powerful cards, they are still polluting your deck because you don't work with the other setup. Tip number 2. Equipment is better than cards. So we're gonna start here. You enter the market and you can choose to buy cards or equipment. Here I highly recommend that you buy equipment. The first map is not that difficult. You should be able to finish off the first few fights without taking any additional cards aside from the basic ones that you are given. So you do not need to buy the cards. You get cards at the end of each combat as a reward. So again, cards are not something that you're gonna be lacking of. So instead what you wanna do is you wanna buy equipment. +5 maximum shield is a really good equipment because it allows you to increase your shield up. If you can have a shield defense of something like 20 or 25, which is especially possible if you pick the second ship, the Light Destroyer, that already starts with the shield defense of 15, it can be really powerful because the typical attacks of enemies is 3 to 9 or 10 to 18. So if you can get a defense of 25, you can essentially not get hurt at all, which is really powerful. Another common equipment is +10 or +5 max HP. These are good, but they're better equipment. An example of better equipment is, for example, getting extra energy per turn. That sometimes you can get something like, if you discard a card, you can also draw a card. That can be very useful if you then go towards a discarding card build. If you have a lot of equipment, as you can see on the screen right now, the 3 on top are the ones that are applied, and all of those on the bottom are those that are kind of waiting in reserve. So you gotta make sure that if you want to apply them, you need to move them up to the top 3 to get the active equipment. Tip number 3, question marks. Try to move to as many question marks on the map as possible. The reason for that is because question marks can give you quests, like the hailing you can see on the screen right now. They can give you equipment, they can give you healing, they can allow you to remove cards, and they can also give you some really powerful cards. This is very important, and you want to focus on that as much as possible. The only thing you can get in combat is cards, unless you have some other cards that can give you some other benefits, but really try to move through the map, get question marks. Question with this related is fuel, which moves me to point number 4. So you might say, well, I just don't have enough fuel, I need to move towards the exit or the distress signal, I just don't have time to go. Getting to 0 fuel is not a problem, because what happens when you get to 0 fuel is you call out a hailing signal, and 2 things can happen. Either friendly ship is going to come and it's going to sell you fuel for 20% of your money, or you have to fight a new combat enemy ship. Usually the preferable thing is to fight an enemy, because you can get at the end of combat around 5 fuel or something like that, so it can give you a lot of fuel, and you just do a regular fight that you should be able to fight off anyway. The 20% of your money to buy new fuel is also an interesting option. It's very useful if you have a low amount of money. Right now, for example, I have only 10 money, so this would be useful. It can be a problem if you have a lot of money, like 200 gold or something like that, then it's really expensive fuel, so you want to watch out for that. But usually, if you don't have very high money on hand, it's a really good idea. Don't be afraid to run out of fuel and take your time to explore the question mark. If you can meet the aliens and get a gateway key, it gives you a new distress signal, and if you move towards that, it usually usually gives you some really good rare equipment, so I highly recommend that you do that. Tip number 5, farming enemies. In these games, it's often beneficial to prolong a fight and not just immediately finish it. So you might ask, when? Well, there are 3 different times when it's a good idea. We'll start off with the one that's like least important and finish with the most important. So the least important one is you have a card like a thief drone or other cards that allows you to steal money. It can be a good idea to prolong a fight and to be able to steal a little bit more money. How do you prolong a fight? Well, especially if you go with this red ship, the Light Destroyer, you can increase your shield to 15 or 25 depending what is your equipment. And essentially you just want to shield up so that you make sure that when the enemy is hitting you, you don't get too much damage, and then you're not going to hurt him at all. And you're just going to wait a few turns, get a little bit more of that money. Or you just hurt them a little bit. Second reason, and this is a little bit more important, is to get fuel. There are cards like Siphoning Fuel, which allows you to siphon fuel from an enemy. Again, this is a good time to prolong the fight, try to get some fuel, especially if you have a lot of money. So the chance that you might have to pay 20% of your money to get fuel if you run out of it is really expensive for you. So in that case, it's a really good idea to try to siphon some fuel. And now the most important reason why it's important to sometimes farm enemies, or why it's an option. Healing. In this game, there is no automatic healing. You do not get automatically healed after you kill a boss fight. You do not get automatically healed at a different kind of trade station or something like that. You can go to Questionmarks, or sometimes some people will be willing to heal your ship for money. That can happen, but it's not very common. So, however, there are cards like repair drones and other cards that allow you to heal up. Alright, so these are my top 5 tips for the warp. Let me know what are your favorite tips for the game, and you can click on the right to watch some of my Let's Play of this game. I'll see you there. Bye bye!